So the feet on this rig, and on most rigs you will come across, is fundamentally different than all of the other things we have done in class so far. The arms are exactly like everything we've done in class so far. I move this joint, everything below it on the hierarchy moves. I move this joint, everything below it on the hierarchy moves. This one doesn't because it's above it, and so on and so forth. Even if it's not technically parenting that's involved, although there probably is parenting involved, this outranks this, outranks this, et cetera, down on to the fingertips. It means that to place the hand on something, to place the hand on the character's hip, it's to keep it there is not going to be easy, because as soon as you go and you move this or this or anything, the hand will move. So why is it now that the feet suddenly want to stay planting to the ground? Well, that's something called IK, inverse kinematics. Everything else we've been doing is FK, forward kinematics. This is IK. IK means that the feet will stay on the ground unless we come up like this or move forward, or what you're supposed to do, which is actually move the foot. Actually, this one's bent, so there's a little bit more. There we have it. And you can see there's a little bit of a foot roll going on. It's built into these. What is technically happening with IK? Well, so here I have a standard joint chain. Right, so this would be the hip joint, and this would be the knee, the ankle, and then there's the ball of the foot, and then there's the very tip of the foot, tippy toes. And this is relatively standard for setting up a foot. You just change the location of these things depending on how long the character's legs and feet are. And it works on forward kinematics. This drives this, drives this, drives this, etc., etc. These are children of this parent, of this parent. It's exactly as everything we have been doing so far this year, parents of each other. An IK handle will reverse that to an extent. So if I put an IK from the hip to the ankle, there we go. What happens, and it's hard to see because the color it changes this is like this brownish color. I move the handle and I get to drag the foot directly. I get to intuitively place the foot where I need it to go. And you can see that this and this are rotating. And you can actually see a triangle drawn here. So what's happening here is trigonometry. This length and this length are set, right? They are set. This length varies depending on if I put the foot here or if I put it here. If I put it here. And so it figures out if I move this foot here and these two lengths are the same, what angle does this and this need to be for this length to be like that, right? Because if you have two lengths that are set, the third length is going to change based on the angles. And so it's calculating that math for us. Now, that is limiting in certain ways. I cannot go back in. I say I don't, well, not usually. Okay, I'm not supposed to, once you set up a rig, you can't. But, you know, once you set up a rig properly, you can't go back in and be like, oh, but I want to bend the knee this much. I want to move the hip this much. Nope. Once you have this set up, this is how you're doing things, right? There's no going back in and manually changing it. You can switch back to FK, but then you lose this handle. So if we go back to our human character, that's what's going on under the hood here. Actually, let's grab the foot that actually looks like it might lift off the ground. So there's an ankle joint here, a knee joint, a hip joint, and this is where the IK handle is, and I move it, and these things follow. Now, these joints follow better than my, example because there's other things set up in here. The pole vector is also part of this. The pole vector works in tandem with the IK in order to point the IK in a certain direction. Because as I said, we can't go into any kind of hip joint and just rotate it, the way we do the shoulder. The shoulder, I can rotate this wherever I want. I can't manually do that with a hip joint, so the pull vector works as that function because it has to rotate a couple different things without moving the ankle, because when you rotate this, everything moves. So the pull vector manages to kind of rotate the hip while keeping the ankle in the same place. Other functions of the foot, in order to show them off, I am going to have to lower the hips again, because in lesson number 1 for walking, you're going to have to put the hips closer to the ground, because if the legs are apart from each other, then you're not standing as tall. So in order to get this foot to work, I had to kind of give myself a little bit more room. All right, so lots of different things on the foot. We can tilt from side to side. That's what the foot tilt. So this is a foot roll, basically, which is my favorite thing. So I moved this. Let's bring this back to 0 for a moment. So when we move this character like this, the foot does peel up off the ground, but not naturally. We don't want the knee shouldn't have to go all janky straight like that in order to pull the heel off the ground. Technically speaking, I want this to happen. Or, we can push that pretty far. There we go. That's someone pushing their foot off the ground. It doesn't match with the rest of this, by the way. We're just going over the foot. So we can do a toe tap. That actually makes more sense over here. So if you've got a character whose foot is flat on the ground, you want to do kind of a toe tap. Oops, wrong foot. And then swiveling on the ball of the foot, so the rotation point is kind of like in there. And all of these are basically just finding different places to rotate the foot around, right? So if we rotate this, we're rotating around the heel right here, whereas if we use this, we're rotating around like this sort of invisible area that's right here. Foot tilt rotates, rocks back and forth in the opposite direction. Toe up down only rotates this part of the toe, and then ball swivel rotates the whole everything, like you're stamping out a cigarette. And you don't use all of them all at the same time, usually. If you're walking, you're probably using this heel ball, the foot roll. If you're, having an idle animation, you might use the toe up down to tap the foot, or the foot tilt to kind of like, fidget. You use different ones at different times. Simplicity is usually a little bit better. There is also this one last kind of toe roll that's at the very edge, in order to, get someone like really up on their toes. Which doesn't make any sense when it's that flat, but if we combine this a little bit with this, you can get kind of like tippy toe silent animation. And it's quite a big difference to me, this versus that. There's no version of this that makes any sense to me. I don't know. I don't like it. I feel like there has to be a little bit of a bend. Even if you're doing tippy toe animation, it has to be a little bit of a bend. But all of these, there's lots of different ways to rig up something like this. I'm used to a group-based foot where you just make lots of groups and have different pivot points, but there's, you can use joints, all different ways. But basically it involves putting different locators or something that can act as a locator into the foot, combining them in different ways so you can have different ways to, different locations around which to rotate different collections of joints. I don't even see anything happening with the stretch. Cool. Oh, that might actually be more in line with this. Yeah. So if you turn this up a little bit, you're allowed a little bit of a stretch before the foot. So if you want a little bit of squash and stretch in your walk, it'll stretch the leg as it's going. So if the leg isn't straight, nothing happens. But if we turn that all the way up, the leg is going to stretch quite a bit. Nope, 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 nope. The 0.3 worked pretty well. Hello? Hello? 0.3? Come on. There we go. That's quite enough of a stretch. So this is called seamless stretchy IK. It's not easy. So I'm impressed he has it in here. Let's see what else. Knee lock. Not sure what that's going to do, so we're going to leave it alone for now. I'll see if I can discover exactly what that does later on. But most of this rig is what we're used to, forward kinematics. The few places that break that would be this hip. Hello? There we go. This hip joint for sure, because some of this other stuff should be moving if it was totally formally FK. But that's more just taking it outside the hierarchy rather than anything inverted. Whereas these feet are inverted. The kinematic, the motion is inverted from what it usually is. So we're going to get more practice with the FK stuff in class tomorrow, but that is just the general overview of how it works.